Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla, coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with Schla. And as usual, I feel like I'm getting out earlier, and I don't. And it's just like, not really sure what to say about that, but I always end up right around the same time. And it is what it is. I mean, it's no biggie, right? What's the big deal about it? I don't know. But, yeah, what am I even saying right now? It sounds so, like... I'm not really sure what I've been contemplating, honestly. To put it into words is a little bit tricky, which I know that usually doesn't happen to me, but yeah, I guess we can start there. I mean, I'm realizing the extent that it must be nearly impossible for people to put things into words, and it's something I guess I just not only took for granted, but just kind of assumed, like I said, that other people were loosely similar to me. But there's no way in a day and age with the amount of noise that exists that people would at all have any competency when it comes to feeling a feeling and then verbalizing and articulating and understanding the feeling. That is just not... I mean, in this day and age, I don't know why anybody would do that, or... There's no reason to. And I think a lot of people from my generation, even though when they were a child, they were like that, now they're not. Because nowadays you have a small amount of Gen Z, very small. I think we maintained the past and the present. So we remember the past, and we can cross-compare. People with good memory can remember their childhood and their thoughts and what they were thinking back then, and and cross-compare that to now, as well as the memory of the experiences they went through. There are some of us out there. It's not much. Now, the rest of Gen Z, again, we were a transitional generation. So we kind of dabbled in both. We dabbled in the old and we dabbled in the new. You see what I'm saying? And it puts my generation at a very specific perspective that I don't think anybody else can really see as well. It's just tricky. It's tricky to try to figure out. But when it comes to putting feelings into words, it's not something that many people are going to be capable of anymore. I guess at some point an AI is going to do it, because you'll have a brain chip that can just read and interpret emotions. I guess I'm realizing that. So what I just thought about in that moment of silence was how a lot of people lie or misremember things nowadays. Like, it happens really frequently. And some of it is due to modern noise, just because people have to deal with so much more stuff. And obviously, you don't have to deal with so much more. It's that you choose to, because you're addicted to information and stimulation. So people choose to deal with a lot, and as a result, they're drained. They're more drained than they were in the past, so it's a memory thing. And so you just can't... I mean, if you're processing, somebody processes 50,000 words a day, and another person and this is through reading or through that's kind of high. I don't know. Yeah, that seems kind of. I'm really mad at myself because I'm usually good with intuitively being able to kind of assume numbers accurately. And at first I was just going to say 100,000, but that's way too high. I think it's probably more like 20,000 words a day would be pretty high for someone to process, I would assume. I mean, even 10, yeah, like the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm just like lowering the number dramatically. Yeah, I don't see why. I think if you process 10,000 words a day, that even seems too high. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not doing well at um intuitively trying to guess this. I guess it's man, that's just silly. I'm really disappointed in myself for that, but what can you do? I can't believe I was initially just like, oh, 100,000 words. Like that would literally be impossible. But the whole point is, let's say, just to make it simple and not focus on the numbers too much in terms of how accurate they are. You have one person who processes 4,000 words a day, and then in the past you may have only processed 1,000 words a day because you didn't have TikTok constantly telling you so many different things, and then you might read an article here or there. You might have the TV running. You might be texting some people. You may even call some people. You may have people in your family to talk to. The amount of time that people are spending using words is probably higher than ever. And I guess words is only half of it because I think it's imagery. Imagery and videos, visual, is obviously higher than ever. And if anything, people are starting to probably diminish in terms of verbal because humans are so drawn to visual, it's easier for us. So a lot of people are just going with that because it's easier. But you have to think about the consequences of living in a world where people can't be bothered to read properly and things like that. I mean, you really have to wonder what the lasting effects of that are going to look like. Because you can see it coming based on the way the human brain is best at and happiest at in taking information. People are going to gravitate to not reading and probably just sound and video. It's just inevitable because you're going to get to a point where a lot of people, there's just not really going to be a reason to read, but reading is a faster medium to process things. So now I've heard you don't retain as much that you read typically, but that may be like I heard something that you retain more that you speak than it's like what you hear, than it's like what you read. You know, there's like steps to what you do and how it translates into your memory. Like sitting in a classroom learning something is going to be different than sitting at home on YouTube because it's just, I don't know, there's certain things going on, obviously. So, but what I'm saying is that percentage of retaining information is probably subjective. There's probably some people who are actually really good at retaining what they read, and in that case, reading is actually a more efficient medium than speaking. Because speaking is, I mean, you're limited to the speed that the speaker is speaking. And you're also limited to whatever voice. Reading, it can be as fast as you want, and you also are engaging in a bit more creativity because you have to put a voice onto the words. You have to try to... just insane because you realize how little people even read anymore. And I don't even read books, you know. So I'm not saying this in a talk down way. It's something I should really work on too. But I do want to get an e-reader at some point and kind of get into that, hopefully. It's one of my goals. It's one of my goals to do that for sure. Just kind of waiting. I'm scouring eBay, waiting for a good deal. I already passed up 2 good deals. I probably should have just bought one of them, but I'm just waiting, as usual. Just waiting. Because that's just what I like. I like to try to get as good of a deal as I can. So, kind of annoyed because I would have probably pulled the trigger already and bought one of the listings, but I don't know. We didn't end up doing that. But yeah, it is a different medium, and I think we've talked about before handwriting and now the absence of handwriting. I think too, there's certain older people that had wisdom and would kind of resist. I don't even think I've talked about this before, but my grandpa originally had a sedan, and he always said, "Oh, all these SUVs, they make it impossible to see. They're not good for visibility. I'm never going to get an SUV. I'm never going to get an SUV. It's, a sedan is," and he always had sedans. And then eventually, as they got old, both of my grandparents, as they got older, they had a harder time getting in and out of the car because sedans are obviously lower to the ground, whereas an SUV is just more at like a normal chair kind of height. So I'm sure that wasn't the only reason, but that was one of the main reasons that they wanted to get an SUV. And yeah, I don't know. There's probably other reasons too, but it was easier to get in and out of. They were getting older, so they wanted to have something easier to get in and out of, and then they ended up getting it. And so for a really long time, I would have never thought that. Yeah, I'm just laughing. I'm like so thrown off. This guy's driving a Honda Insight, and he just like passed me, but it was slow and it was loud. I've never, like, a fairly old Honda Insight, not the oldest, but like I want to say it's the second gen. I'd have to look that up though. It's not the first gen was like way too, like, that thing I think was like really slow. But I think it's a second gen Honda Insight, and he was tailgating me at first. And a lot of people do that, but the reason why it doesn't make sense is because the turn going onto the highway is fairly sharp, and it's not a very long road to get to that turn. So I usually just stick at 30, because you really can only be going 30 at the turn. So if you wanted to get there and be going faster than 30, you'd have to use your brakes. And I know that doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make any... If you're going to do... If you know a harder turn like that is coming up, you don't just drive faster and then brake when you get to the turn. you just spread it out and you just chill. And if you know you're going to have to be at 30, you just hold 30. Right? This is how you drive. And I guess not many people are told that. So this guy was already tailgating me. And again, I didn't even pay attention to what he was driving at first because I couldn't, like, I just wasn't, I'm trying to talk, I wasn't really caring. He's just some guy tailgating me. But then when I'm merging on the highway, he really obnoxiously passes me in a way a lot of people don't. Like, even that woman a couple days ago with the Dodge last week, last week, couple days. Anyways, I think it was towards the end of last week. There was that, I believe, a Dodge Neon SRT4. I never looked it up. I don't know if that ever existed or what other car that would be, but it was, it was a 2000s Dodge. It had round headlights. I assume it was a higher trim Dodge Neon or something. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It didn't say Neon on the back, though, because they may have dropped that naming for the SRT4, or the woman might have just gotten it removed to make it look cooler. I don't really know. The whole point is, though, this guy really, she didn't even do that. And she passed me, of course, but she did it properly. Like, she waited until we got onto the highway, and then she passed me. So I didn't really think much of that. Like, that's not obnoxious to me at all. That's just like, okay. Like, I didn't even really think about, like, it's just what you'd expect. I don't know. Doing things the way that you should if you want to pass someone. Now, what this guy did is he, like, cut out of the passing early and tried to, like, get around me, so then I couldn't merge onto the highway because I had to wait for him to pass me, which is a little bit crazy, obviously. Or at least I think it's crazy. And so I was, like, a little bit late to merge onto the highway. I mean, nothing bad. I wasn't, like, running into the shoulder yet, but it was getting there. And part of the reason is because he's driving a Honda Insight, and the engine sounded loud, like it was working hard, and it was not moving fast. I mean, that was probably one of the slowest people to ever pass me. Just the slowest. I mean, it was so obnoxious and stupid. I don't know why you would drive a car like that. I heard its engine. The RPM must have been so high. That poor car. Just because he's some, and he's probably a fairly new driver. I mean, he didn't look old. Of course, it's really hard to gauge a person's age just off of that, but he just didn't look old. He looked probably younger than me, I don't know. I just think it's kind of crazy. I really do. I think that was just, like, too funny of a situation. But at the same time, I'm not as mad about it because it wasn't dangerous. And that's part of the reason why I think you need to have horsepower regulations, because the cars now are too fast and it's causing issues, because people can't handle them properly. And even, like, a regular car is just kind of too quick. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Cost savings completely have gone out the window. Sorry, I just had to, like, document that had happened. It was just such a silly situation. Oh my gosh, I've never had somebody be that obnoxious and have that slow of a car. I'm pretty sure the the Honda Insight, it could be one of the slower cars you can get, period. Like, if I had to guess, it could be slower than the Prius. I'm not really sure, though. But either way, I mean, if somebody did something like that in a Prius, that would also be ridiculous. I would have definitely made, like, similar comments, because I'm assuming, you know, it's a similar story, but for some reason I thought that the Prius was faster. I don't know. I might just be thinking of the first gen, but I never saw the data for the first gen Prius. But I know the first gen Honda Insight was like really weak. So I'm assuming maybe the Prius was a little bit more powerful, but I never looked at their numbers, so it's just I'm just guessing. But yeah, I don't really remember what we were discussing at this point. Obviously, but I had to get that recorded. I just had to get that recorded. It was just such a silly situation. But again, I'm not mad, because it wasn't dangerous, you know? And that's the important thing to note. Maybe it should be age-based, like, if you're under 25, you shouldn't be allowed to drive a car with over a certain amount of horsepower. That sounds like a pretty cool rule. I wonder how much people really care about breaking rules anymore. You know, I'm just getting flashbacks to when I grew up. It was like there's discourse in movies and in culture that like being a rebel or a rule breaker was cool, and that was like in, you know what I mean? Is that still really as in? Because I feel like you just don't hear about that as much anymore. You know? You don't hear about that kind of thing being, I don't know, relevant for people. It's just different now. Like, I guess now there's not, you know what it is? There's not any rules to break. I think that's the difference. There's basically no rules to break or even want to break, because if you think about, I mean, what has happened to ethics and morality in a digital age? No, this is kind of just, I don't know, kind of deep and out of nowhere. I mean, in the past, you were restricted to the physical realm. And there were still very clear, like the 2000s, there were still pretty clear rules. Like, people weren't that distracted and aloof. So, people in authority did enforce a lot of rules. And so, we could break them. And in a multitude of different ways. It wasn't just one thing. It was rebellion as a whole. There was so many different things you could rebel against and things you could do to rebel. Your mom might be saying this or that, and of course it's still the same deal. It's still the same deal. some people have parents who are more strict than others. But in a lot of ways, it's changed because now we have access to the digital medium. And the digital medium has made it so that there's no longer rules to break. There's not really interfaces where breaking rules matters that much. I guess people get banned off of platforms, but the severity of a lot of these things is just not as severe. I mean, if you get banned, you can just make another account. And I even feel like if I had to imagine, things are still probably more lenient with what you can do and what you can say in 2020's America on TikTok or on Instagram or on YouTube than you could have gotten away with in 2000's America just talking to anybody. I'm sure if you cross-examine those two things, that you can just get away with more now. I think more things are acceptable. But I also think there's been so saying more things are acceptable isn't an accurate way to explain it. It's that social judgment is no longer universal because of the death of the monoculture brought that in, where you don't think any belief can be sheltered now because people are ideologically fractured due to individualism. But there's probably always going to be some people who won't end up being bothered by certain things as a result of that fracturing. Whereas in the past, following and breaking rules was very clear because there was just the monoculture and the counterculture, maybe, you know. But then if you were part of the counterculture, that was clear and understood, and you were rebelling against the primary culture. But now there is not just one counterculture. There's probably a culture and counterculture immediately within multiple schools of thought. And I guess these things were always the case. I guess it was never as black and white as culture versus counterculture. But I think it was more black and white. And now things are more gray and fractured. And so this has an effect on morals, and in terms of, I think we're kind of living in a time where anything goes. There's not really much of a respect for rules. I don't think people really care about rules or care about trying to not do things to avoid consequence that much, you know. And so it went from being a rebel to now everybody is just operating at their animal level. There's nothing to rebel against because it's anything goes. Everybody's kind of free to think or feel however they want for the most part. And of course, you still end up dealing with certain kinds of social judgment. It's not like that goes away. There's still certain things that are upheld and probably and hopefully will always get upheld, but you can just get away with a lot more now. And short form content has exacerbated that because it's a lot harder to regulate So, yeah, and I mean, you think of the morals and the content. I mean, if you had to pull a prank in the... Because this is why I think of prank videos, because it's something I was never really that into, but I did watch them when I was like 12 and you know, a teenager and stuff as entertainment. And I don't really think about it too often, but I recently remember how that's kind of a big thing, is people bothering people, essentially. And so you need to think about it, if in the past, if you wanted to rebel and get that form of entertainment, like, you had to do it. Or you had to know a friend who did it and see them do it. What you couldn't do is just open up YouTube and watch other people do it. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you wanted to pull a prank on someone, you had to take a risk. You probably would upset them. You'd probably have to deal with backlash for that. And so now, there's no more backlash. You can just watch a video of somebody engaged in poor behavior and get the same rush, but with no risk. Sorry, there was like a truck tailgating me, and it's like, yeah, I'm going slow in a 3-lane highway. I'm in the lane on the right, and we're passing an area that people merge into. And there are cars there potentially merging, and he honks at me and slips into the center lane. Like, you can see what I'm doing. You can see. I don't understand that, how that can be complained about in a 3-lane highway, because there's obviously, that is the whole point. If you're in the far right lane, in general, you know that there's exits, and why do I always forget what they're called? Merging ins. I don't. Why am I being like this dense right now? I'm like, what? Because what is it called? Why am I not remembering what it's called? Literally, like, so embarrassing. I'm thinking of the on-ramp. I mean, but that's not... I don't know. I don't know why that came to mind. Exit entrance. We'll just call it an entrance. Like, what else am I supposed to call it? But anyways, yeah, that's just something I don't understand about people. Is it's very... Like, why would you be going at the speed limit in that lane? You should be going under. And I actually have talked about this before, I think. My idea about... I think like a bunch of people just ran a red light. I mean, because there's no cars like intercepting them, but still, it's... I don't know why that was necessary, but... I literally think like 3 cars ran it. I guess I could have as well. Just seems like, yeah, I don't, today it seems like there has been something's odd. Is it a full moon or something? And well, I'm not joking. I mean, I don't know that I disagree with that stuff, but I don't know that it's actually, that really has anything to do with it. But people did seem, this overall was a crazier driving day than most days that I've dealt with in recent memory. Well, I don't know. I thought this episode was pretty good. I'm happy with how it turned out. I ended up talking about stuff which sometimes it's a struggle, but a lot of times I can find my voice. So it's good. My battery was very low on my audio recorder, so a little bit worried about that, but fortunately not a problem. Fortunately it didn't die. I think I just got the 10% thing, so it's probably going to die soon, but not yet. And all good news, right? So I'll have to remember to charge it. I probably needed to remember to charge it yesterday, but I didn't, and I forget a lot of times when I have to do it at home, so it's like a common thing I end up forgetting. Yeah, when I have to charge it at home, I just forget to. I mean, I honestly also forget when I have to charge it at work, but that's not really the point. I probably... Whoa, what is this bug? Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to remember to put up the sun reflector thingies for the windows, because I had been doing that. And I forgot to yesterday, which was one of the things I was going to do, and one of the points of me sitting here and rambling in my car, one of the justifications for sitting in here and rambling in my car for a bit when I arrive at work. Oh my gosh, there's so many things I keep forgetting to take out of my backpack. Yep. But yeah, this sunshade, I think it makes a pretty large temperature difference. So these things aren't a scam, guys. They're not a scam. If you thought they were a scam, they're not. And I want to get a better one, and I'm pretty sure I've already said that, but who cares if I repeat myself, because nobody's even watching these anyway, so. Alright. So I have to put the left one on first. I can't do that. Why am I having so much trouble doing this? I used to be able to do this super well, and now it's like being weird. I don't know. I just need to get better ones, and I get pretty stingy about doing stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's basically a wrap, right? Like, what else is there to get into? It's been schla, but now it's time to buy schla. So, see ya, schla.